I took up my phone and started dialing paramedics because it was clear by then that this woman is not in the best shape. I was about to make the call when the woman started to choke. She was choking on the air and gagging in pain. It was as if something is stuck in her throat. Her gags soon transformed into horrible coughing, and Paul and I just stood there cluelessly. We had no idea what was happening to her, and we were so much taken aback by this terrible sight that we forgot to act on it. She slowly crouched down on the floor while coughing and gagging. "Oh my God, she's about to vomit," Paul said in disgust. But what happened afterwards, none of us expected to see.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Hello everyone. So today we're trying something new. I'm trying to record on my laptop. I don't like the way the camera looks. But we're gonna be reacting to 3 Target stories animated. That's what we're gonna be watching today. I don't have headphones to plug in here. So yeah. But we're gonna, let's get scared. Let's start the video.
I have been working in a Target for a long time. We face all kinds of customers every day, from the over-demanding dad to nagging kids. We try to manage everyone with a smile. But some customers turn out to be completely different from what they appear in the beginning. It was a boring Tuesday night, and I was cleaning the store. It was near closing hours when I noticed a woman standing in front of a shelf full of toilet paper. She was nodding her head from left to right and talking to herself in a very weird manner. I was stunned to see her behave like that. I stopped working and stood there in awe. She suddenly turned back and said, "Melissa, don't you have work to do?" I am sorry, ma'am." I turned around awkwardly
So she didn't realize that, what's her name? She don't even have a delay. The lady knew her name. All right.
and started mopping the floor again. It took me a second to realize what just happened. Wait a minute. How did she know my name? I don't even know her, and I'm pretty sure this is the first time we are meeting in person. I looked at her with a confused face and said, "Ma'am, how do you know my name?" She didn't reply, just stood there like before. I went to her and touched her shoulder when she suddenly broke free from her transient state and looked at me as if this is the first time she's seen me. "Can you please tell me where I will get the toilet paper?" "Ma'am, you are standing right next to them." She looked up at the stacked rolls of toilet paper and got extremely embarrassed. I could see in her eyes that, all this time standing there, she didn't even notice these rolls. It was as if, all this time, she was in a different world. I asked her again, "Ma'am, you didn't tell me. How do you know my name?" "What? I don't know your name. What are you saying? You just called me by my name. I don't even have a name tag." "Ma'am, are you feeling all right?" Yeah, I'm just going to finish shopping and go home. I am sorry if I startled you." The woman grabbed some toilet rolls and threw them in her cart. I could tell from her body language that she is aware of her weirdness, and she is trying to hide something at the same time. As soon as she went out of my sight, I felt the urge to keep an eye on her. I secretly followed her. She walked past the hardware section and went to the clothing department. At that moment, there were hardly 3 to 4 people in the store. The clothing section was completely empty. The woman was going through boys' t-shirts like a normal person. I started organizing the shelves nearby and observed her with the corner of my eye. 3 minutes went by and she didn't do anything weird like before. I kind of lost my interest, thinking it was all just a coincidence. I might have taken 5 to 6 steps when I heard a chuckle. As I looked back, I met with a disgusting sight. She was pulling her own hair and chewing it like crazy. The way she was eating her own strands of hair made me shudder in disgust. Saliva was drooling from her mouth, and her eyes were moving around like crazy. I couldn't wait and watch her going on like this.
That's what I get trying to be freaking Inspector Gadget, cause see, if I ain't know nobody and they had said my name while I was, working, I'd be it it's time to quit. Like, it's time to look for a whole new job. Sorry.
I rushed to the counter and called my coworker, explaining this emergency situation. By the time I reached near the counter, I saw other customers leaving and Paul locking the main entrance. Don't! There's someone in here! What? Tell them we are past closing hours. No, you are not getting it. There's something very wrong with her. You need to come with me. The usual routine was to lock the main entrance after 10 p.m. and leave for home using the back door. Paul and I have worked many shifts together, and we were the ones who left the store last. I escorted him to the clothing section where I saw the woman last time. There was no one else in the store, and Paul was getting anxious to leave as well. What is it, Melissa? There's no one here. No, I just saw her right here. She was eating her own hair. I'm telling you, there was something wrong with her. Look, I don't have time for all this. Let's make a quick round around the store and leave. I have a date to go to. We started searching the store. Paul was walking casually while I searched for that woman frantically. I even called out to her. Ma'am, where are you? We are about to close the store. Please come out. But no sign of her. We came back to the entrance. I still couldn't shake off that memory of seeing her chewing her hair when I heard a gasping sound. My eyes went to Paul, who was standing right beside me. I noticed his face turning pale with an unknown fear. His eyes were stuck at something ahead of us. As I followed his eyes, I found that same woman standing in front of us. But this time, there was definitely something wrong with her. Her eyes were turned inside her head, revealing the white area. It was so scary for that moment, it felt like she had no eyeballs. She was breathing heavily while making a groaning sound. I whispered to Paul in a low voice, "She's the one I was talking about." Paul took a step ahead and said in a fumbling voice, Ma'am, are you all right? Should we call for an ambulance? She didn't reply and then smiled at us in the eeriest way possible. I took up my phone and started dialing paramedics because it was clear by then that this woman is not in the best shape. I was about to make the call when the woman started to choke. She was choking on the air and gagging in pain. It was as if something is stuck in her throat. Her gags soon transformed into horrible coughing, and Paul and I just stood there cluelessly. We had no idea what was happening to her, and we were so much taken aback by this terrible sight that we forgot to act on it. She slowly crouched down on the floor while coughing and gagging. "Oh my God, she's about to vomit," Paul said in disgust. But what happened afterwards, none of us expected to see. The woman shoved her index finger inside her mouth and started to pull something out of her throat. It was a freaky, scary sight to watch. After a few seconds of suffering like this, something actually started to come out of her mouth. Once she took her fingers from her mouth, we saw what it was. Believe me or not, that woman pulled out almost a ball of hair strands from her throat. Yes, all that hair she ate back then, she pulled it out from her stomach. I can't tell you how slimy and filthy it all looked. But there we were, watching this awful scene like statues. After discharging a pile of saliva-covered hairballs from her mouth, she got up and turned to Paul. Her inverted eyes turned back to their normal shape and she said, "Please, help me. She's trying to replace me." "Who? What do you mean?" Paul asked her, but before she could reply, something inside of her started to break her bones from within. Her body was bending upwards and downwards, sideways and in every direction possible, like crazy while her bones snapped. It was a scene from an Exorcist movie, and we had no idea what the hell was going on. I didn't wait anymore and called the paramedics. Paul screamed in fear as neither of us were able to witness this woman turning into a vegetable with her bones breaking one after the other. By the time the paramedics reached us, she was lying on the floor, wrapped and folded like a garbage bag and barely breathing. Her eyes were popped from its sockets with enormous pain and fear. Even though she was taken to the hospital, she couldn't be saved. Paul took a leave to get his shit together and didn't discuss a word about that woman or that night to anyone. But I couldn't just let this matter go. A few days later, I went to the hospital she was being taken to and asked a nurse about her. I had to give quite a description of her condition, and the nurse recognized. "Oh, you mean Miss Ruby? Yeah, it was bound to happen anyway." I obviously got pretty shocked with that kind of reply and asked, "What? Why are you saying that?" The nurse told me she knew this woman from her neighborhood. Ruby lived close to her house. She had no family and was on her own, and she worked as a medium in seances. The nurse also told me her profession took a huge toll on her, and that in her last seance, she got very sick as the spirit denied going back. I understood why she said someone is trying to replace her that night. All her spooky behaviors were the result of being possessed. I don't know if all that is true or she was just a very sick individual. But trust me, the way Paul and I witnessed her bones breaking, it has to be some evil force lurking inside her at that moment. There's no human on Earth who can break his or her own bones like that. Often at night, I woke up imagining those snapping sounds and her gagging voice trying to ask for help as the uninvited guest took over her body.
Hey, Keith, fuck these niggas up.